Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Pop Jedi. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Rob DiLauro, and with me, as always, Miss Diana Marie. Diana, what's going on?
Hi, guys. I'm happy to be here.
And, of course, we're here with Sith Jade. Sith, what's going on?
Hi, guys.
So the Jedi Order is here. Once again, we just want to make it very clear every episode that we do. We thank you so much for your continued love and support. I've got a couple people that actually hit me up the other day asking if we're going to do watch-alongs and, things like that. We're actually in the midst of talking about that. But we just want to get more episodes under our belt before we decide to kind of move on to greener pastures. But we're so grateful for the love that we receive and, the kind words, when it comes to our credibility in the pop culture area. And, just thank you guys for watching. Really, really appreciate everything, the love that the show is getting. So with that, we're not doing Pop Jedi news tonight. We are actually going to focus on one thing, which I think our minds are on, and of course everybody else in the world's minds are on right now. Yeah. If you are a Marvel fan, and that is WandaVision. So we decided that we're going to do this episode devoted not only to the show itself, not only to our theories, but also just the characters, because their arc in terms of, going from comics to live action, and of course, their, stint in popularity has just been tremendous. And, there's definitely a lot there to talk about. We are on the eve of the WandaVision series finale. And, yes, it is absolutely 100% bittersweet for someone like myself. But what is grief if not love persevering? So what are your guys, what's your thoughts on the eve of this episode coming up? Do you have any theories that you want to, bring to the table, or, really just kind of like, just an idea of, where you got a love for these characters, where it actually stemmed from? Is it a new love, like a lot of people, or was it something that, actually, kind of emanated through the years? Seeing Elizabeth Olsen's performance, or, Paul Bettany. I'll tell you guys mine, but, obviously I want to get a beat on where your love for these characters are.
I don't even know where to start with all this, but at the end of the last episode, Agnes did drop that Wanda is a Scarlet Witch. So I'm just interested to see where that's going to play out, because in the comics, she is very tied into mutants and everything like that. So I'm not sure if we're going to tie into that universe. And then there's the Nexus and how that's going to tie in with Loki and Doctor Strange. So there's just a lot to talk about there. There's just so much to unpack.
Well, let me ask you this. Were these characters that you were actually like passionate about before this show, or was this, kind of like a newfound thing?
As soon as I saw Wanda at the end of which movie is it?
Age of Ultron? Or no. It would be the stinger for Winter Soldier.
Yes, as soon as I saw her in that end clip, I was like, I want to know everything about her. Like, I was drawn to her immediately. So as soon as I introduced her into the Age of Ultron, like, I loved her character, because she's, like you said, she's such a broken character, and there's so much death. She lost her brother, and then you get to see more of her in WandaVision and how her pain kind of progresses in that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, what about you, Sith? Where did your love for the character come from?
So I actually wasn't super interested in her as a character. I didn't really know a whole lot about her. And I wasn't...
that's not weird that you say that, because I think a lot of people are kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
As I'm going to mention later, like, they are technically kind of C-list Avengers, and they kind of had to, go through a process, even when it comes to the fan base. So yeah. There's nothing you're saying is off color when it says that you're saying you didn't like them at first. I think a lot of people feel the same way. But please, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I thought she was interesting, but it was like there wasn't just that spark that you feel, when Iron Man comes on the screen for me. He was one of the ones that from the very beginning I was fully invested in. Mm-hmm. And, I saw him and people were kind of up and down about, oh, we're going to like him, we're not going to like him. So I became very invested in him, but I didn't feel that same spark for her. Vision, however, I was very invested in him even from the beginning when he was Jarvis, just because I love Paul Bettany. Because of him in A Knight's Tale. That was like my first introduction to him, of course, a lot of people, and just his accent, his way of acting and carrying himself. So his voice, even though he didn't physically have a body, having him being in the show just as a voice, a presence
his
like
voice
that.
Is like butter.
Like gotcha. Please don't quote our attempting to sound like him. Not a professional.
No, not at all. We can't do any justice. But for me, it's a little bit different because even when I'm sure there's people that are in our age bracket, but there was a time where this stuff was not even remotely cool, and you couldn't get girlfriends, and you didn't have a lot of friends, and you got beat up all the time or whatever. It's just the way it was. So you were a true grit comic book fan at that point because it was kind of like it was a stain, kind of like being a horror fan or whatever. So so I'm a true grit comic book guy that had the file cabinets in the room, and used to go to the the brick and mortar, what I mean, like every week, and pick up new issues and stuff. And I was really into the backing and the all of it. And I've always been a fan of Scarlet Witch and Vision as characters, simply from the dynamic that kind of I guess how I felt about David Bowie or whatever, the fact that he's kind of representing the strange, and he's representing these things that I always felt as a kid. Like I always felt like an outcast of some sort, black sheep, whatever it is. And Vision and Wanda's relationship really is kind of that, the fact that a lot of people wouldn't think that technically a human woman could fall in love with a robot,
artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And I really love that dynamic about them. Plus, the fact that, I think Scarlet Witch more than, or Wanda Maximoff more than Vision, really, took Marvel into all these different worlds that it normally wouldn't go into. Not just the mutant gene aspect or whatever, like, parallel universes, dark forces, that kind of thing. And I've always been, I've really always been accustomed to witches. And I think I've made this clear before in one of our episodes, but I am a witch. So, I don't know. She just scratches me where I itch.
Feel right at home with her character.
Yeah. And, and I'm really super excited that, we live in a time where, Kevin Feige and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is allowing witches into the world. It's really kind of cool. There's a lot of people that are saying, obviously that book comes from the world of Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. There's people that are saying that, which I'm praying that this is the thing, but there was a book within Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I believe, called the Darkhold. And if you guys aren't familiar, the Darkhold is actually one of the darkest, most ancient tomes in the Marvel universe. And technically kind of like, just kind of the Mother Goose book of just complete and utter evil and chaos and demon, demonic, vampiric, that's where all your dark magic comes from. So I'm really hoping that particular book, does come into play at the end of this story, which it seems like it is, because, we got the announcement that Jared Leto is playing Morbius, the living vampire. We've got a Blade announcement with Mahershala Ali. You can get into Midnight Sun territory there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, if Doctor Strange is, I think I had said in our last episode, I think that Doctor Strange is kind of going to be the Tony Stark of this particular phase, like the magic phase. Like he's going to be the one where Tony was kind of more focused on the whole science aspect of things. This new phase is dark magic, and there's no better person to open up that door than Dr. Stephen Strange. Let's talk about Elizabeth Olsen and just Paul Bettany as performers. I actually I had seen Elizabeth like years and years before. She was actually in this independent thriller. And she was just phenomenal even then. I think she had to be like, she actually did it with Sarah Paulson, believe it or not, when Sarah Paulson was like way early on in her career.
Yeah.
And it was just a small indie that they were both in. And you could tell even then that Elizabeth Olsen had the chops, but she was nowhere near where she is today, obviously. Mm-hmm. Which is obviously like the evolution for any artist, you know what I mean? Like you don't, necessarily start at the top, you have to kind of work your way up. And of course, like I guess being under the shadow of the Olsen twins, of course, which is, it's really funny to me even now when I see people that didn't know that. They're like, she's Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's sister. What?
I didn't know that. I was one of those people that was
really?
wait a minute. Are you serious? Like I didn't even know.
A few days ago, and I was like, what? And then I saw the pictures. I was like, okay, like I see, but I never made the connection.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Olsen started out as a indie actress, and Paul Bettany. Paul's another interesting one because Paul, like you said, he had done films like A Knight's Tale, and he really flexed his comedic chops even then. He was the voice of Jarvis throughout the entirety of the MCU. So Paul Bettany was an actor that was kind of down on his luck at that point, and he decided to do the voice of Jarvis, which obviously is like iconic in itself. But we reached a pinnacle of Paul Bettany's career where I think he was literally in a casting agent's office, and the guy had told him that like, you should just quit, just hang it up. There's nothing else for you. Go back to the UK. I just don't think your career is ever going to do anything.
Look at him now.
And he went back. He went outside on the stoop of Hollywood Boulevard, and he kind of put his head in his hands, and just like fate happened. I think it was like maybe 10 minutes later, he says in the interviews that he got a call saying, "Would you want to play Vision in Age of Ultron?" Joss Whedon in passing actually wanted him to play Vision, because he had this certain idea of Jarvis, be put into the body of this child of Ultron or whatever.
Yeah.
And that changed his life, obviously. So Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are wonderful at what they do, and but also kind of like a testament to people like ourselves that are trying to cut our teeth in other arenas of the industry or business or whatever. It's not going to be glowing every single time. You're going to fall on your face, and I do love that aspect of their stories. So yeah, I guess the point being, why do you think these two in this why do you think these two are actually so compelling in terms of what they're bringing to these characters?
I just think that they're super relatable. They're both very humble and very down to earth. You can see when they're giving their interviews, you can just see it on their faces that they feel blessed to be there. And obviously everybody that's given opportunities like this feel good about it, but there's just some certain little spark with them that makes them so relatable.
Yeah, I can co-sign that for sure. Diana, why do you think these two are perfect for these parts, aside from just the fact that they are just they're just wonderful performers? They if they're not garnered with Emmy nominations in the next award run, then that system is
Yeah.
I don't like to use political terms like rigged, but there's something wrong.
Flawed.
It's flawed. Yeah.
Well, it's just adding to what Sid said. I haven't really watched a lot of interviews with Paul Bettany, to be honest, but seeing Elizabeth Olsen's interviews about WandaVision and the roles that she's played, you can tell that she's very passionate. So when she plays the roles that she's in, she puts her whole heart into it, and that definitely translates to the screen. So,
Diana, what was your when you're watching the show? Obviously, you're getting that grief and your pain, and that pain from that character, it like bleeds all over the screen. But what do you think was actually so dynamic? Not even as a woman, but just like the actual evolution of this character at this particular moment in time. What do you think is the most unique thing in terms of her arc and where it's going?
I think that the fact that she's so relatable as a mother and a wife. In the last episode, when
she's a great mother, I'll give her that.
Oh yeah, she's a very devout mother, wife. So at the end of the last episode, where she reaches out to Vision and she's like, "I can't feel you," like you feel that pain. Like personally, when I watched that movie, I was thinking, okay, if I lost my partner, and I had to go through that, I think Elizabeth Olsen's portrayal of that kind of loss was very relatable.
Yeah.
To watch.
It was a very realistic portrayal of grief, and there was no sugarcoating it. It was real, and it was very raw.
Actually, I wanted to ask you guys this too, because like we had White Vision come in at the end of the episode, last episode. Personally, I do not think there's going to be a battle between Vision and White Vision. I think it's too linear, and I think that there's more to that than we're expecting. There's one question I wanted to ask you in terms of these theories that have been going around the entire season, obviously. we had briefly mentioned it, but you know, Goodner that showed up for Monica, the engineer. What did you think of that, and what is your, you know, who do you think she is? Do you think she's somebody important? Because honestly, or maybe you guys can just tell me if you agree with me or not, but I just watched Captain Marvel the other day. I love Captain Marvel. I love Brie Larson in that role. I think she's perfect for it. And seeing that dynamic between her and Tiana Paris, you know, is going to be pretty amazing. But when I was watching Captain Marvel, there are Skrulls that end up in the Rambo's life because of Carol. You know, because they're refugees. You know, like trying to, you know, like hide from the Kree. You know, because Kree is obviously like, you know, putting them in a position where they look more villainous than they actually are. I'm sure there's bad Kree, you know, just like there's bad Skrulls. You know what I mean? But the Skrulls are actually like, you know, hiding from the Kree. And you know, like they were actually like literally in, you know, Maria Rambeau's house, just hanging out. So Monica had a very deep relationship with these, you know, with these Skrulls. I knew very well, you know, firsthand that there was, you know, intelligent life out there in the galaxy, even before Thanos and all that stuff came into play. So personally, my feeling is, and I think it's something that's actually going to play into it a bit today, believe it or not, is that Goodner woman is actually a Skrull, and not even just a Skrull, but actually Talos, the Skrull that was in the Rambo's house. It's their daughter, and you know, obviously, you know, because of what the Rambos did for her, Carol done for them, there was an allegiance that they felt like, you know, the Rambos, you know, like deserve their loyalty and deserve their technology. And I'll tell you what, dude, I would be mind blown if even for a moment Brie Larson showed up in this episode. I'd just be like, whew.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Just dropped in superhero landing. Just, I'm here now.
Yeah, but obviously there is some sort of division there between Monica and Carol. I don't know why. My theory on that is, you know, that's obviously going to travel into Captain Marvel too, is the fact that due to her radiation and her, you know, and her power, I think maybe she gave Monica's mother cancer.
That would be like a really dark twist to it. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them though. I mean, with everything that they've done with WandaVision so far, you know, they're getting a little more gritty now with things. So
yeah, but sure. I think Goodner's a Skrull for sure. So actually, I wanted to ask you, Di, about your feelings on Agatha Harkness. Personally, you know, not even just from the, you know, the comic book arcs and stuff like that, where she was technically she was a witch, you know, from this, you know, Salem witch trials, you know, area of life, and she's, you know, ancient and 100, you know, hundreds of years old or whatever. But she was a nanny for the Richards in Fantastic Four for their son Franklin. So there is an arc of her, you know, kind of being like, I mean, dare I say an Obi-Wan, you know, because, you know, Obi-Wan wasn't that great of a friend to Anakin, let's be fair. Yeah. Even though he'd like to think he was, you know, nobody leaves their friend on a lava planet and, you know, like check if they're not okay or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no.
But yeah, so anyway, I think there's more to her character than we're seeing. I don't think she really honestly wants to unmake the world. I think there's something there, you know, trapped within the timeline that she's maybe trying to break through, some sort of, you know, like heartbreak or loss of some sort. Maybe something has to, you know, do something with her son or her husband, quote unquote, Ralph. You know, I think there's more similarities to Wanda and Agatha than we're actually seeing.
Yeah.
I think the reason why she feels so connected to Wanda is simply because, you know, they're kind of going through the same trials and tribulations of life.
Yeah.
I just don't see her as the like villain.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. Sorry.
I think that there is a reason for her studying Wanda, because she knew about the chaos magic. I'm pretty sure that she's probably caught on that Wanda's probably a nexus. In the comics, I believe that Agnes actually teaches Wanda how to harness her power to control it to be better. So I don't think that, like, I agree. I don't think that she's the evil villain that they're making her out to be right now. I think that she's going to eventually work with Wanda, maybe. And then
I think honestly, you know, maybe you guys can agree with me on this one, but I think she's scared of Wanda.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I agree with that. You could see how cautious she was when she was unraveling, her thoughts and stuff with her. She was always just a little bit away from her as she was kind of doing her thing.
Well, she also said to her, she goes, "You're supposed to be a myth. You're not supposed to exist."
Yeah.
And here you are, like you are a dangerous being. You don't understand how dangerous you are, and yet here you are making breakfast for dinner. Like
she kind of resents her for being so powerful and not even being aware of what she's capable of.
Well, I mean, Agnes had to take out her whole coven essentially to get where she was. We saw that in the last episode. She zapped everybody, and took everything from them. And she even before she did that, she begged them. She's like, "Teach me, please teach me, please show me what to do." Yeah. And so she might be feeling that same connection to Wanda of, okay, you're in the same position that I am. Let me teach you, an anti-hero kind of situation.
So let's talk about theories. When it comes to this episode, what are your personal thoughts on what is actually going to occur? I mean, obviously the one thing that was mentioned, I think it was actually Tiana Paris that said it in her interview. She said, "Get your tissues ready. This is going to be a very sad event. It's not going to end well."
Just going back on what you said earlier about Vision, I think that this is going to be a goodbye to him.
Yeah, me too.
Because Wanda's lost everything. I think that the fact that she didn't want Vision to be reanimated and brought back to life, the fact that he's going to be back, he has no memory or emotion towards Wanda, that's just going to break her. I think that she needs to say goodbye to him to move on and become the Scarlet Witch.
I absolutely agree. And I think that was kind of like, the precursor of what Vision was actually saying to her on the bed when they were watching Malcolm in the Middle together. What is grief if not love persevering? What is grief if you do not have love for yourself? You can't ascend and you can't actually grow as an individual. And you're stuck in this, you're stuck in the past and you're stuck in the same place. You're not going to be able to grow as a person. I think, he was projecting a path that a path that she needs to take in regards to, how she's going to ascend as not only a heroic individual, but also as a woman. Mm-hmm. Telling her to be selfless. And even though love, can be painful, unfortunately, sometimes that's the road that human beings have to take to progress.
I definitely agree. I think with White Vision coming in, I think she's going to have to make a choice. She's going to have to choose, okay, this is my happiness versus literally the entire world potentially being destroyed. Because I think if he gets out there and starts, using him as a weapon, it's not going to end well.
Right.
Well, the thing is, like, even though she's going through all this pain and suffering and depression, everything that she's doing right now in terms of Westfield is absolutely selfish, completely selfish. Where, I think, that's where you saw the breakdown of this relationship to a certain degree when it comes to Wanda and Vision, because he's completely the opposite. What was the one thing that you remember him saying when he's breaking through that hex? You have to save the people. Don't save me. You have to save them.
There's people inside. You have to save them.
People help. So they're, like, even though they're absolutely in love with each other and they're enamored by each other in some fashion, they're different as night and day.
Vision already accepted his fate.
Yeah. You could see that when he was having the conversation with Darcy, and he was basically like, "Who am I? What happened to me?" And she's like, "You died." And you could just see it on his face that he was coming to that realization that, okay, this might be my time to just say goodbye.
The whole thing is, aside from, like the actual, like, the multiverse aspects, the rips in time that are, supposedly supposed to happen. I think the reason why this works so well, and, for me, like being a David Lynch fan, the only time I've ever really seen this kind of interaction when it comes to a show would probably be when Twin Peaks came back in 2017. Like it was just like theory after theory after theory, and people were like, just putting all these videos out and whatnot. I love that aspect of this show, but I think the story's more personal than we're all making it out to be. And I think that's the reason why the director, Matt Shankman, when he was actually interviewed recently, he said, man, there's going to be a lot of people disappointed because, it's Wanda's story. It you know what I mean? It's her processing. It's her grief. It's her You know what I mean? So obviously we've got all these different Marvel aspects, when it comes to the punching and the flying and all that stuff. But, in the grand scheme, it really is just a simple love story. And the fact of somebody not being able to get rid of someone, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's painful to even process the idea of not having this individual in your life. Before we leave here, I wanted to ask you guys, where do you think Wanda actually goes from here, in terms of the narrative? I will happily say that I did watch the, if you guys haven't seen it, I just want to put it out there. Jimmy Fallon actually did a really wonderful parody called Fallon Vision the other night. And it was him and Elizabeth Olsen through Zoom, but he was actually doing it through like classic talk shows, like, how they were in the 50s. So it kind of had this Buddy Holly look, and it was black and white and stuff. And she looked like she did in the 50s episode and whatnot. It's pretty brilliant. It was wonderful. But the one thing I will say is that, when I saw Elizabeth interviewed last night, if you guys haven't seen her, we'll actually post a picture up. She had her hair up in a bun. Mm-hmm. She had this really like long collared shirt, and her collar was like up in the air.
Yeah, she looked beautiful.
And she was actually, she tends to talk with her hands, so she was doing this a lot. And she just looks so Scarlet Witch.
She looks exactly like her character, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you can even tell just from the hair, from the hair change, the hair color change, and all that stuff. Like, she was on the set of Multiverse of Madness, so obviously, maybe not this time around, but we are obviously going to see the final transformation or evolution of Wanda Maximoff as Scarlet Witch, as the ultimate omnipotent goddess that she is, Nexus being and all that stuff. But like, what where do you think this character is going? Do you think there's going to be a situation where Strange actually trains her? Do you think she's going to be the big bad? I don't see that personally, but a lot of people do.
I think that she's going to have to learn how to accept the loss and the grief from losing Vision and her family. I don't know. I think that they might make her out to be one of the, I don't know if I should say good characters, but there's still going to be a lot more struggle that's going to be a part of her story arc, I think.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think about it, Sith?
I kind of agree with that. I think this is going to be one of those things. It's like you're seeing a character, you're seeing someone who's gone through just one brief instance, one after the other, and it's kind of getting to a point of, okay, what do you do now that you keep losing everything over and over and over again? Where do you go from there? Do you actually take a hold of that and try to heal and try to do some good and try to help other people that are feeling this way, or do you just sink in and just give up? Because we've seen her give up multiple times, just crawl back into her whole little world that she's made. So I think she's going to have to confront it, and I don't think it's going to go well. I think it's going to be very, very sad and very, very dark for her.
I don't see this this extinction level event thing happening. So but I'm very happy in the fact that Elizabeth Olsen mentioned last night. She was like, well, I know that people are loving the show and that excites us. And people are asking for a second season, which I don't ever see happening. But you guys will happy to know that when it comes to Wanda Maximoff, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is the perfect tee up for this character, is how she put it. I'm just really excited to see, where this character is going. Personally, I would, I would love if Vision's death, that people are, a lot of people are projecting right now, that it was a red herring and he does get to survive and move forward. But again, we are in a position where we can actually bring characters back. I think, honestly, this whole story right here, and of course, getting into dark magic and whatnot, I think eventually, maybe not in Doctor Strange, we will get Natasha and Tony Stark back in some capacity.
I really hope so.
I hope so too. I want it so bad.
People are going to find out. People are going to find out through this magic phase that resurrection works. And maybe Wanda
just proved it. Yeah, she just proved that it is possible, and she's the key to all of it. So. Mm-hmm.
And listen, not for nothing, Tony Stark, he's so similar to Tony Stark. I always call him Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But Downey had said in an interview recently, he said, don't count he said, I am, enjoying my life right now, and living the life that I live, and working on the projects that I work on, but don't count Tony out, is what he said. So like that's great. That's great that he left that door open, because usually when people retire a character, it's just like I'm hanging the number up and it's never
done.
Just whatever. So I definitely think that like this magic and stuff is going to kind of blend into the idea that we can bring other characters back.
And I just want to see Wanda be happy.
All I want to, man. That's all I wanted. Is smile.
I just want her to live her best life and just be happy for once. But I definitely think she's just going to have to really confront her grief and all of her trauma, and it's just going to come to a head. And she's going to have to make the big decision of if she's going to let it take over her, if she's going to try to beat it.
I really hope that there's one thing that she does get to do in some form, and that's to bury Vision. It seemed like it was something that really meant a lot to her.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course that ass, said something about like, we're not going to bury 300, billions of dollars worth of vibranium or whatever.
Yeah.
I hope she gets that. I hope she gets that memorial that she wants.
Closure.
It seemed like it was very important to her to do that. And of course, just for Vision to be respected in some way. I know that, in the storyboards, that didn't necessarily show up on the show. She did step into sword, but, like initially it was supposed to be that Black Widow and Tony Stark were getting all these accolades, when it comes to news reports and, statues and all this stuff. And nobody really gave a crap about Vision because he was he's just a synthesoid man, what I mean? So they don't necessarily consider that a life, when it comes to sacrifice and that kind of thing. Yeah. And another thing that I should have touched on when it comes to the show, and of course, the comic book story as a whole, a lot of people don't know this, but, the reason why Vision was, the color that he was in the comics was to kind of display in some capacity that Scarlet Witch was, in many terms, married to or in love with a person of color. Mm-hmm. So technically, Vision wasn't just a robot. It was actually kind of like signifying a biracial relationship, which was unfounded back then, in the time of, King Kirby and all that. So Marvel, for all intents and purposes, when it comes to, stepping up to the plate, when it comes to, humanity and the ills of humanity and all that stuff, they really focused on all of that, and and DC respectively as well. We just want to say thank you so much for the journey, Kevin Feige. We really love the show. Like I said, it's bittersweet to see it go, but we're going to get back into Top Jedi news next week and all of that stuff, and focus on the news that matters. Thank you guys for your continued love and support. We really appreciate everything that you're doing in terms of just the kind words that you're saying to us, and just subscribing and talking about the show with your friends and all that. And from all of us at Pop Jedi, we just want to say have a great night. Enjoy the series finale of WandaVision, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.